हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम टू माय यूट्यूब चैनल द सोलफुल डायरी। आज के वीडियो में हम बात करेंगे फिलिप लार्किन की पोम ऑबेद के बारे में। पोएट के बारे में हम पहले ही एक वीडियो में डिस्कस कर चुके हैं, जिसका लिंक डिस्क्रिप्शन में। चलिए आज पोम को इन डेप्थ डिस्कस करते हैं। पोम को इन डेप्थ डिस्कस करने से पहले जान लेते हैं उसके कुछ की फीचर्स। Orbit by Philip Larkin is a poem about the unifying qualities of death and the human experience. There is nothing Larkin's speaker can do to make death less real. An Orbit is a morning love song or the song story of two lovers parting at dawn. Despite the title, Larkin changes the events around in Orbit, focusing on death rather than a romantic evening and morning. The poem was published in the Times Literary Supplement on December 23, 1977, and is to some one of, if not the last major work that Larkin completed. Larkin's mother died around the period that he finally returned to this poem and chose to finish it, something that some scholars cite as a source of inspiration. He died in 1985, 8 years after the publication of Aubade. It is a beautifully dark poem about the inescapable nature of death and humankind's moments of despair. Throughout the poem, Larkin's speaker takes the reader into his darkest thoughts, those he has early in the morning before the sun comes up. There he thinks about his future and the fact that death is always right. There at the edge of his life, there is nothing in the world that can soothe the fear of death. He says, religion tried, but it's useless in the face of what's to come. The speaker also notes how it's in these moments when there is so drink of friendly faces as distractions that the reality of death sets in. It's going to come for you, whether you whine about it or show courage in the face of it. The poem concludes with the speaker describing the first rays that make their way into his room. It takes shape around him while outside people go about their lives, each one with knowledge of death in the corner of their eye. It is a five stanza poem that is separated into sets of 10 lines. The lines follow a steady rhyme scheme of A B A B C C D E E T, changing sounds from stanza to stanza. The form is completed with the fairly consistent use of iambic pentameter. This means that most of the lines are made up of five sets of two beats. The first of these is unstressed and the second is stressed. The majority of the lines follow this pattern, but there are a few, such as line 7 of the first stanza, that differ. In this case, the pattern is broken. The lines end with two stressed syllables next to one another. Self and die. There are two also examples of the opposite in obey, two unstressed syllables next to one another. For example, ing and in line 9, the pairing of beats is known as an anapaestic foot. पोम को इन डेप्थ डिस्कस करते हैं। स्टैंजा 1, I work all day and get half drunk at night. Waking at 4 to sound is dark, I stare. In time, the curtain edges will grow light. Till then, I see what's really always there. I'm resting death a whole day nearer now, making all thought impossible, but how, and where and when I shall myself die. Added interrogation, yet the dread of dying and being dead flashes afresh to hold and horrify. In the first stanza of Orbit, the speaker begins by describing waking up at 4 to soundless dark. This is not an unusual start to an Orbit, but what comes next is Larkin's speaker is not waking up with a lover with whom he has just spent the night. He is instead waking up to thoughts of death. He knows that eventually the darkness outside will give way to light, but for now he gets to look around him and see the world for what it really is, unresting death. He is a whole day nearer to his own death than he was yesterday. This heavy subject matter makes the first stanza of the poem overwhelming and surprising. The speaker goes on to say that it's impossible for him to think about anything other than where and when I shall myself die. Unfortunately for him, his thoughts are consumed in this strikingly depressing way rather than with a loved one. The idea of his death is not unusual for him. He knows and has always known that he would eventually die, but the idea of being dead comes upon him to hold and horrify. Stanza 2. The mind blanks at the glare, not in remorse, the good not done, the love not given, time torn off unused, not wretchedly, because an only life can take so long to climb, clear of its wrongs beginning, and may never, but at the total emptiness forever, the sure extinction that we travel to and shall be lost in always, not to be here, not to be anywhere, and soon nothing more terrible, nothing more true. In the second stanza of Aubade, the speaker focuses on what it is about death that he's so worried about. It's the total emptiness forever that haunts him, not the things left undone. He's not so worried about the love not given or the time unused. He's thinking about what it is like to exist as nothing, the sure extinction that all living creatures are traveling to. Once there, we shall be lost in that blackness always. It's hard to comprehend as human beings what it will be like to not be here or be anywhere. Readers should make sure to take note of line 9 of the stanza. Rather than using a standard iambic pentameter, Larkin uses two dactylic feet. The line is also significantly shorter than the others around it. This means that readers should be pulled toward it and immediately realize it's important. Stanza 3. This is a special way of being afraid. No trick dispels. Religion used to try that vast, moth eaten musical brocade created to pretend we never die, and precious stuff that says no rational being can fear a thing it will not feel, not saying that this is what we fear. No sight, no sound, no touch or taste or smell, nothing to think with, nothing to love or link with, than aesthetic from which none come around. Moving on, the speaker says that the fear of death is special. It is a different way of being afraid than anything human beings experience in any other part of their life. There are no tricks that can dispel it. Religion used to do it for some, but nowadays ancient rituals created to pretend we never die do nothing. He takes the reader through other arguments about death, ones that say that human beings should not fear something that can't feel. He doesn't believe that any argument or state of mind can dispel the solid and inescapable fear that's at his heart and the heart of every other living sentient thing. In the future, we all enter into a state of being in which there's no touch or taste or smell, nothing to think with, nothing to love or link with. He compares it to a type of anesthesia that takes over everything and no one wakes up from. Stanza 4. And so it stays, just on the edge of vision, a small unfocused blur, a standing chill that slows each impulse down to indecision. Most things may never happen. This one will, and realization of it rages out in furnace fear when we are caught without people or drink. Courage is no good. It means not scaring others. Being brave lets no one off the grave. That is no different. Wind at than when stood. The last stanza have established that death is this overwhelming, all encompassing thing that no one can escape. In this stanza, the speaker notes how that fear lives just on the edge of vision. It is a small, unfocused blur that one can't quite see but also can't ignore. It holds a certainty that many other things don't have. Most things may never happen, this one will. Larkin's speaker also makes sure to mention how the fear of death moves from being a tiny blur in one side to a furnace fear. When we are caught without people or drink or other things to distract ourselves with, the fear rears its head. There's no courage that can outpace death, nor will winning keep it at bay. It comes for all equally. Stanza 5. Slowly light strengthens and the room takes shape. It stands plain as a wardrobe. What we know, have always known, know that we can't escape, yet can't accept. One side will have to go. Meanwhile, telephones crouch, getting ready to ring. In locked up offices and all, the uncaring, intricate, rented world begins to rouse. The sky is white as clay, with no sun. Work has to be done. Postmen, like doctors, go from house to house. In the final 10 lines of Aubade, the speaker takes the reader back to the beginning of the poem. It's early in the morning, and finally, the light is starting to filter into the room. The room takes shape around him, and everyone goes about their day, doing what they need to do. Things are in motion. Larkin uses examples of similes and personification in this stanza, as he describes the telephones crouching, getting ready to ring, and the postmen who, like doctors, travel from house to house. The postmen ring with them, with them letters from friends and loved ones, maintaining a link, the human connection. This is the same way that doctors help keep our bodies alive. Both sides are important. All the while, despite our best effort, death exists. Literary devices. Larkin makes use of several literary devices in Obaid. These include, but are not limited to, examples of enjambment, caesura, imagery, and similes. The first of these, enjambment, is a common literary device that is seen in the transition from one line to the next. For example, that which exists between line 6 and 7 of the first stanza and between lines 3 and 4 of the third stanza. There are also few examples of caesura in this poem. For instance, line 8 of the first stanza reads, arid interrogation at the dread, and the line 8 of second stanza, and shall be lost in always, not to be here. Imagery is one of the most important poetic techniques that Larkin uses in Ovid. Can be seen throughout the poem as he creates images that require the reader to use various senses to imagine them. For example, the eighth line of the fifth stanza reads, the sky is white as clay with no sun. There are also several examples of similes in Ovid. For instance, the last line of its poem, postmen like doctors go from house to house. Similes, unlike metaphors, use like or as to compare one thing to other. Themes. The clearest theme at work in Ovid is death morality. Throughout this poem, Larkin's speaker focuses on the inevitability of death and what exactly it is that he fears about it. Unlike some, he says he is not worried about leaving things undone. The regrets that he might have in the future don't bother him. What he thinks about most is the blackness that will greet him on the other side of death. It will be like a anesthesia from which he will never wake up. There will be no smells, thoughts, or anything to think or smell with. He will be entirely lost. That state of being is incredibly intimidating. It is important to note that all universal Larkin makes the theme of death inobate. Clearly, all human beings and all other living things will have to face it, but in this poem, Larkin discusses it so openly and clearly that it is incredibly easy for any reader to relate to his specific sentiment. थैंक यू आई होप आज की वीडियो आपको पसंद आई कैसी लगी हमें कमेंट करके बताएं और हमें ये भी कमेंट करके बताएं कि आप आने वाली वीडियोस किस टॉपिक पर देखना चाहते हैं अगर वीडियो अच्छी लगी तो लाइक शेयर एंड सब्सक्राइब टू माय चैनल मिलते हैं कल एक और इन्फॉर्मेटिव वीडियो के साथ शाम 4 बजे। टिल देन कीप वॉचिंग एंड कीप सपोर्टिंग द सोलफुल डायरी। थैंक यू।